The crystal towers of Valeria glittered under the light of 3 moons. Once this sight had filled the Valari with pride. Now, it only reminded them of what they would soon lose. Grand Luminary Savax stood at the edge of the High Council chamber, his translucent body dimmed with worry. The latest readings from the planet's core left no room for doubt. Valeria was dying. The crystalline world that had nurtured their civilization for thousands of years was breaking apart from within. "How much time remains?" Savax asked, his inner light pulsing with anxiety. Chief Scientist Milox's light patterns shifted to a dark blue. 3 months, perhaps 4. The core destabilization is accelerating. Soon, the tremors will become too severe for our cities to withstand. Savax turned to face the gathered council members. "Our evacuation ships can only carry a small fraction of our population. We have no choice but to seek help from beyond our world." The council chamber erupted in flashes of colored light, the Valari equivalent of heated discussion. Many opposed the idea of asking for outside assistance. The Valari had kept to themselves for generations, observing the galaxy but rarely interacting with other species. "We have monitored the Galactic Concord for centuries," argued Elder Tyron. They claim to value cooperation and assistance, yet their actions often suggest otherwise. "We have no alternative," Savax replied firmly. "Our world is dying. Our people, all 9 billion of them, face extinction. We must try." The vote, when it came, was unanimous but reluctant. Within hours, the Valari sent their most powerful transmission ever, a desperate plea for help broadcast to all corners of the galaxy. In the Grand Council chambers of the Galactic Concord, 27 species represented the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy. Their meeting hall floated in orbit around a manufactured star, a display of their collective technological prowess. High Chancellor Zorax of the Medusan Collective gestured with 3 of his tentacles as the Valari message played for the assembly. "The request is clear," Zorax said when the transmission ended. "The Valari require immediate evacuation assistance. Their planetary core has become unstable, and they face extinction within a short time frame." Ambassador Threll of the Arcturus Federation flicked her antennae dismissively. "The Valari have never sought membership in our Concord. They have observed us from afar but contributed nothing. Their crystalline technology could be valuable," noted the Vexillian representative, his metallic skin reflecting the chamber's lights. "But the cost of evacuating 9 billion beings would be enormous." "And where would we relocate them?" asked another council member. "No world in our territories could support their crystalline biology without massive terraform investment." The debate lasted less than 1 standard hour before High Chancellor Zorax called for a vote. The result was decisive. The Galactic Concord would not intervene in the Valari crisis. "Send the standard non-interference response," Zorax instructed his aides. "Cite Protocol 17B regarding non-member species and resource allocation priorities." The Bardi, matter of an entire civilization's survival, was closed with a few bureaucratic words and without a second thought. Dr. Elena Reyes rubbed her tired eyes and reached for her 3rd cup of coffee. The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station was usually quiet, but tonight her screens had lit up with an unusual signal. "That can't be right," she muttered, checking the readings again. The signal was like nothing in their databases. Complex patterns of light-based communication translated into radio waves. Even more surprising was the origin, a star system over 40 light-years away. Elena's heart raced as she ran the translation algorithms. Humanity had been searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth for centuries. They had achieved limited interstellar travel only 30 years ago, establishing small colonies on 2 nearby systems, but had yet to encounter another intelligent species. As the translation solidified on her screen, Elena's coffee cup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. "Urgent. Planetary catastrophe imminent. Requesting immediate evacuation assistance for 9 billion Valari. Our world dies. Please help." Within an hour, Elena had contacted the United Earth Council. Within 3 hours, an emergency session had been called with representatives from all Earth nations and colonies. The United Earth Council chamber in Geneva buzzed with tension as scientists, military leaders, and government officials crowded the seats. President Adesina of the African Union stood at the center of the room, her expression grave. Dr. Reyes has confirmed this is not a hoax or misinterpretation, she announced. We are receiving a genuine distress call from an alien civilization facing extinction. They call themselves the Valari. Admiral Chen of the Earth Space Fleet shook his head. Madam President, our interstellar capabilities are limited. We have only 17 ships capable of such a journey, and none designed for mass evacuation. Not to mention we know nothing about these aliens, added Defense Minister Petrov. This could be a trap. Dr. Reyes stepped forward. The signal contains detailed information about their biology and their situation. They're crystalline-based life forms. Their planet is experiencing core destabilization that will lead to total planetary collapse within 4 months. 9 billion beings, whispered Representative Singh from India. How could we possibly save so many with our limited technology? The room fell silent as the enormity of the situation sank in. Then Captain Maya Okafor, one of Earth's most decorated spacers, stood up. With respect, we have to try. If we were facing extinction and sent out a call for help, wouldn't we hope someone would answer? President Adesina looked around the room. This goes beyond anything humanity has ever attempted. The risk is enormous, the chances of success minimal. But if we turn away, she paused. What does that say about us as a species? The debate raged for hours. Scientists argued over technical possibilities. Military leaders warned of security risks. Economists calculated the massive resource requirements. As dawn broke over Geneva, President Adesina called for a vote. The result was not unanimous, but it was clear. Earth would attempt what no other civilization would, to save the Valari from extinction. Send the response, President Adesina ordered. Tell them Earth is coming. On dying Valaria, Grand Luminary Savax had given up hope. The Galactic Concords, rejection had been polite but final. No other advanced civilization had bothered to respond at all. When the communication officer rushed into his chamber, Savax barely looked up. Grand Luminary, we've received a response. Savax's inner light flickered with faint hope. From whom? The Vexillians? The Arcturus Federation? No, the officer replied, his crystalline form glowing with excitement. From a species we've never communicated with before. They call themselves humans. The message was simple. We received your distress call. We're coming to help. Hold on. You are not alone. As another tremor shook the crystal towers of the Valari capital, Savax looked up at the stars and wondered about these humans who had chosen to answer when all others had turned away. Captain Maya Okafor stood in the command center of Earth's largest spacecraft assembly facility in orbit above the planet. Around her, engineers and workers from every nation rushed to prepare the fleet for its unprecedented mission. How are the modifications coming along? Maya asked Chief Engineer Hiroshi Takahashi. Hiroshi gestured to the holographic display showing 17 ships in various stages of conversion. We're removing luxury quarters and research labs to make room for more life support systems. But Captain, even with these changes, we can't possibly transport 9 billion crystalline beings. Maya nodded grimly. We'll find a solution. We have to. All across Earth, humanity had united with a single purpose. Nations that once competed now pooled resources. The mission to save the Valari had become Earth's most important project. President Adesina appeared on the main screen. Captain Okafor, how soon can the fleet depart? 10 days, Madam President, Maya replied. But we still haven't solved our biggest problem. How to safely transport crystalline life forms. Dr. Elena Reyes stepped forward. She had been studying the data from the Valari transmissions day and night. The Valari are extremely fragile during space travel. Their crystalline bodies can shatter under normal acceleration forces. Then we need to find a way to protect them, Maya said firmly. For the next week, scientists worked without rest. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a marine biologist from Thailand who suggested using a liquid suspension similar to Earth's deep ocean environments. When tested with crystal structures similar to Valeri biology, the liquid absorbed shock and prevented fracturing. As the fleet prepared for departure, Earth received another transmission from Valeria. The message showed Grand Luminary Sivax, his crystalline form flickering weakly. "Our gratitude to Earth is beyond measure," Sivax said. "But we must warn you, the tremors are growing worse. Our scientists now estimate only 3 months remain before total planetary collapse." Maya's flagship, renamed the Mercy, would lead the fleet. Her crew represented Earth's diversity: engineers from China and Brazil, medical specialists from Kenya and Russia, navigation experts from Canada and India. Many had volunteered knowing the dangers of the mission. On the day of launch, billions watched as Earth's fleet departed orbit. President Adesina addressed the crews in a final message. "You carry the hopes of 2 worlds with you. Though we have never met the Valari, we recognize fellow intelligent beings in need. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for. Go with our prayers." As the ships accelerated toward their first jump point, Maya received an unexpected communication. The message came on a frequency they had never used before. A stern alien face appeared on screen, gray-skinned with 6 eyes arranged in a circle. "This is High Chancellor Zorax of the Galactic Concord. Your species is unknown to us, yet you travel toward Valeria. Explain yourselves." Maya straightened in her chair. "I am Captain Maya Okafor of Earth. We're responding to the Valari distress call." All 6 of Zorax's eyes blinked simultaneously. "The Valari situation has been addressed by the Concord. Your interference is unnecessary and unwelcome. With respect, Chancellor, the Valari are still in danger. We're going to help them. Your species lacks the technology for such a mission," Zorax replied coldly. "You will endanger yourselves and potentially make the situation worse. Turn back. This is not a request." Maya ended the transmission midway through Zorax's next sentence. "Navigation, maintain course, maximum speed." 2 weeks into the journey, the fleet encountered its first major obstacle. Senior Navigator Patel rushed onto the bridge of the Mercy. "Captain, our sensors have detected vessels ahead, large ones. They're blocking our planned route." The main screen showed 5 massive ships in formation. Their design was nothing like Earth vessels. Smooth, seamless, and at least 5 times larger. "Concord vessels," Maya muttered. "They're trying to force us to turn around." First Officer Rodriguez frowned. "We can't fight ships that size." "We won't fight them," Maya replied. "We'll go around them." She turned to Navigator Patel. "Is there another route to Valeria?" Patel hesitated. "There is one possibility, through the Cygnus Nebula, but our sensors would be practically useless in there. The radiation and dust would make navigation extremely dangerous." "More dangerous than failing 9 billion Valeri?" Maya asked quietly. The decision was made. As the Earth fleet approached, they suddenly changed course and accelerated toward the colorful cloud of gas and dust that formed the nebula. The Concord ships moved to intercept, but they were too slow to react. Earth's smaller vessels, though less advanced, had greater maneuverability. Inside the nebula, visibility dropped to almost nothing. Red and purple gases swirled around the ships and radiation alarms sounded continuously. "Shields at maximum," Maya ordered. "All ships, stay in tight formation. Navigator Patel, guide us through." For 5 tense days, the fleet crawled through the nebula. 2 ships suffered damage from collisions with hidden debris. Emergency repairs had to be conducted while moving. They couldn't afford to stop. When they finally emerged from the nebula, the crew of the Mercy cheered. But their celebration was short-lived. "Captain, something's wrong," called out Sensor Officer Kim. "There's some kind of distortion field ahead of us." The space in front of them seemed to warp and ripple like water. No stars were visible through it. Chief Engineer Takahashi analyzed the readings. "It's artificial, a gravity distortion barrier. Someone placed it here deliberately." "The Concord," Maya said grimly. "They knew we might try this route." Takahashi shook his head. "Our ships can't pass through that field. The gravitational forces would tear us apart. The bridge fell silent. They had come so far only to be stopped by an invisible wall. Then Takahashi spoke again. Unless, Captain, what if we used our fusion cores to generate a counterfield, a bubble of reversed gravity to punch through their barrier? Is that possible? Maya asked. Theoretically. It's never been done before, but the math works. It would strain our engines to their limits, though. We might lose some ships. Maya looked at her crew. No one needed to say what they were all thinking. Valerie would lose everything if they failed. Send the plans to all ships, Maya ordered. We'll form a single file. The Mercy will go first and create the largest breach possible. The others will follow in our wake. As the Mercy approached the barrier, Takahashi diverted power from all non-essential systems to the fusion core. The ship began to vibrate as the engines pushed beyond their design parameters. All crew brace for passage, Maya announced over the intercom. The Mercy hit the barrier like a stone hitting water. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems overloaded. On the bridge, control panels sparked and crew members held onto their stations as the ship shuddered violently. For one terrible moment, it seemed they might not make it through. Then, with a final surge of power, the Mercy broke through to the other side. One by one, the other ships followed. 3 suffered serious damage. 1, the Endeavor, lost engine power completely and had to be towed by the Discovery. As emergency repairs began, Maya looked out at the stars ahead. They had overcome 2 major obstacles, but they had lost precious time. The journey to Valeria would take another 2 months. She could only hope they would arrive in time, and that the conquered would not have more surprises waiting for them. On the distant crystalline world, the Valari waited, their hopes resting on the determined humans, who refused to let an entire civilization die. After 2 months of challenging space travel, the Earth fleet finally approached Valeria. Captain Maya Okafor stood on the bridge of the Mercy, her eyes wide as the alien world came into view on the main screen. Valeria was unlike any planet humanity had ever seen. Its surface glittered like a massive diamond with tall crystal structures that caught and reflected the light of its sun. But even from orbit, they could see the planet's beauty was marred by large cracks running across its surface. Scan. Complete, Captain, reported Science Officer Kwame. The planet's core is highly unstable. Seismic readings are off the charts. Life signs? Maya asked. Billions of them concentrated in crystal structures that appear to be cities. Maya took a deep breath. Open a channel. Let's tell them we're here. Communications Officer Chen adjusted her equipment. Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Maya Okafor of the Earth vessel Mercy. We've come in response to your distress call. Valeria, do you read us? For several tense moments, there was no response. Then the screen flickered, and a strange being appeared. It was tall and translucent, with a humanoid shape but made entirely of crystal. Light pulsed within its body in complex patterns. Earth vessel, this is Grand Luminary Savax of Valeria. The voice was translated through the computer, but the being's inner light pulsed in time with the words, Your arrival brings hope we had almost abandoned. Maya smiled. We came as quickly as we could. We're ready to begin evacuation preparations. Savax's inner light dimmed slightly. Captain Okafor, we must warn you. Our world has deteriorated faster than predicted. Major quakes now strike daily. And the crystalline being hesitated. The Galactic Concord informed us you were coming. They expressed concern about your capabilities. Let us worry about that, Maya replied confidently. We need to establish a landing zone to begin rescue operations. Can you direct us to a stable location? Within hours, shuttle teams began descending to the planet's surface. Dr. Elena Reyes led the first contact team, along with medical specialists and engineers from across Earth. The landing zone was a large crystal plain outside one of the Valari cities. As the shuttle touched down, Elena felt the ground tremble beneath them. That's the 3rd small quake in the last hour, remarked Engineer Santos. This planet doesn't have much time left. A delegation of Valari waited to greet them. Up close, the crystal beings were even more remarkable. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their transparent bodies containing swirling patterns of colored light. No two were exactly alike. Elena stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Elena Reyes from Earth. We're here to help." The Valari leader's lights pulsed, rapidly, but no sound came out. Elena frowned and checked her translation device. "It's not working," she muttered. "They don't communicate with sound." Engineer Santos studied the Valari's light patterns. "It's the lights. They're talking through light patterns, not sound waves." Elena nodded and instructed the team to record the patterns. "We'll need to build a new translation system from scratch. Until then, we'll have to rely on basic gestures." The humans and Valerie worked to understand each other through improvised sign language. Progress was slow but steady, until a massive quake suddenly rocked the landing zone. Crystal structures around them cracked and shattered. A tall spire in the nearby city collapsed, sending crystal shards flying in all directions. Without hesitation, the Earth team rushed toward the city. The Valari tried to stop them, their light patterns flashing in what seemed like alarm. "They're trying to warn us it's too dangerous," Santos guessed. "But there could be survivors in there." Elena nodded, grimly. "We don't leave people behind." The human team entered the damaged section of the city. The crystal buildings, once beautiful, now posed a deadly threat as sharp fragments continued to fall. "Life signs ahead," called Medical Officer Patel, checking her scanner. "Several Valari are trapped under debris." The team found 5 Valari pinned beneath a collapsed crystal arch. Their inner lights flickered weakly, a sign Elena interpreted as distress or injury. "We need to lift this structure," Elena ordered. "But carefully. Their bodies are extremely fragile." The rescue was complicated by the continuing aftershocks and the dangerous crystal shards all around them. One engineer received a deep cut on his arm but refused to leave. Another nearly fell when the floor cracked beneath her feet. After an hour of careful work, they freed the trapped Valari. As they helped the crystal beings to safety, more human shuttles arrived with medical teams and engineers. For the next 3 days, Earth teams worked alongside the Valari, rescuing trapped survivors and assessing the planet's condition. Scientists developed a basic light pattern translator that allowed limited communication. In the temporary command center, Elena met with Sevax and Maya to discuss their findings. "The situation is worse than we thought," Elena reported. "According to our calculations, the planet has less than a month before total collapse." Sevax's lights dimmed to a deep blue. "So little time to save so many." Maya frowned. "Even with all our ships, we can't evacuate billions of Valari in a month. Especially, given how fragile they are. We need a different solution." "There's another problem," added Chief Engineer Takahashi, who had joined them from the Mercy. "We've been testing various containment systems, but the Valari crystal structure is incredibly complex. When subjected to space travel conditions, even in our protective gel, the crystal matrix begins to destabilize." "What does that mean?" Maya asked. "It means they can't survive the journey back to Earth even if we had room for them all," Takahashi said quietly. A heavy silence fell over the room. All their efforts, the dangerous journey, it seemed it might be for nothing. Sevax approached Maya, towering over the human captain. "Why did you come?" the Valari leader asked. "When the most advanced species in the galaxy refused to help us, why did Earth, a world we had never contacted before, choose to try?" Maya looked up at the crystalline being. "Because you asked?" "For help," she said simply. "On Earth, when someone calls for help, we answer." The entire room filled with blue-green light as Sevax's body pulsed with emotion. The translator couldn't capture the meaning, but Elena sensed it was profound. As they continued discussing options, a tremendous quake, the largest yet, shook the command center. Equipment crashed to the floor, and cracks spread through the crystal walls. "All personnel, evacuate immediately," Maya ordered through her communicator. As humans and Valeri rushed to safety, a section of ceiling collapsed. Without thinking, Elena pushed a young Valari out of the way. She would have been crushed herself if Santos hadn't pulled her clear at the last second. Once outside, they watched as the building they had just left crumbled into crystal dust. "We're running out of time," Maya said grimly. We need a solution, and we need it now. Back on the Mercy, a message waited from Earth. President Adesina's face appeared on screen, her expression serious. Captain Okafor, we've received a communication from the Galactic Concord. They insist that you cease all rescue operations immediately. They claim we're violating some interstellar protocol by interfering. Maya's jaw tightened. What are your orders, Madam President? President Adesina's reply was firm. Your orders. Remain unchanged, Captain. Save the Valeri. Show the galaxy what humanity stands for. As Maya ended the transmission, she looked out at the fractured crystal world below. Somehow, they would find a way. Humanity had come too far to give up now. Dr. Alejandro Vargas had not slept in nearly 48 hours. The physicist from Mexico City sat in the makeshift laboratory aboard the Mercy, surrounded by data screens showing Valari biological information. Around him, other scientists and engineers worked with equal intensity, searching desperately for a solution. It's impossible, muttered Dr. Imani from Kenya. We can't physically transport 9 billion crystalline beings. Even if we solve the stability problem, we don't have enough space. Alejandro rubbed his tired eyes. The problem seemed unsolvable. The Valari couldn't survive conventional space travel due to their fragile crystal structure. And Earth's fleet couldn't hold even a small fraction of the Valari population. A young Valari scientist named Teriel entered the lab, inner lights pulsing, with what the humans now recognized as anxiety. The newly improved translator converted the light patterns to speech. Another major city has collapsed, Teriel reported. 2 million Valari lost. Our time grows shorter. Alejandro nodded grimly. He watched as Teriel moved to a workstation, the light from the screen passing through the Valari's transparent body and creating rainbow patterns on the wall behind. Something about that sight triggered a thought in Alejandro's exhausted mind. He stared at the light refracting through Teriel's crystalline form, then at the data showing the complex molecular structure of Valari bodies. Light, he whispered. Then louder. Light. The other scientists turned to look at him. What if we convert the Valari to light, or more precisely to data? Alejandro's words rushed out as the idea formed. Their entire physical structure can be mapped as information patterns. We could scan them, store those patterns, and recreate them later. Teriel's lights flashed rapidly. You mean dissolve our physical forms? Not destroy. Transform, Alejandro clarified. Your bodies are essentially complex information structures made physical. If we could scan those structures at the quantum level, we could store the data and use it to reconstruct your physical forms later. Dr. Imani looked skeptical. That's purely theoretical. No one has ever converted a living being into data and back again. But it could work, Alejandro insisted. The Valari are unique. Their crystalline composition makes them more compatible with this approach than carbon-based life would be. Within hours, the concept had reached Captain Maya and Grand Luminary Sivax. A meeting was called with the top scientists and leaders from both species. You're proposing to digitize our entire species? Sivax's lights pulsed in patterns that the translator struggled to interpret. Our bodies would cease to exist? Temporarily, Alejandro explained. Think of it as an extremely advanced form of suspended animation. Your physical forms would be converted to quantum data patterns, stored in specially designed crystal matrices, and then reconstructed once we reach a safe location. Chief Engineer Takahashi added, we would need to build massive scanning facilities on Valeria's surface and develop quantum storage systems beyond anything we've created before. Can you guarantee this will work? Asked one of the Valari elders. That we will truly live again after this transformation? Alejandro hesitated. I cannot offer absolute guarantees. This has never been attempted. But I believe the theory is sound. Sivax turned to the Valari Council. The crystal beings communicated in rapid flashes of light that the translators couldn't follow. A private deliberation. Finally, Sivax addressed the humans. We need time to consider this proposal. It is frightening to contemplate the end of our physical existence even temporarily. Maya nodded respectfully. We understand. But please remember, time is— Her words were cut short as the entire room shook violently. A deafening crack echoed through the structure as a fissure opened in the floor, splitting the room in two. "Everyone out!" Maya shouted. The Valerie Council chamber began to collapse around them. A massive crystal beam broke free from the ceiling and plummeted toward the group. Several humans dove for safety, but Civax and two elders were directly in its path. Without hesitation, Engineer Takahashi and two security officers leaped forward. Using their bodies as shields, they pushed the Valari leaders clear. One security officer wasn't fast enough. The beam struck her leg, pinning her to the ground. As aftershocks continued, humans and Valari worked together to free the injured officer and evacuate the building. Outside, they watched as the ancient council chamber, a structure that had stood for thousands of years, collapsed into rubble. Civax approached Maya, inner lights pulsing softly. "Your people risk their lives for us without hesitation." "That's what humans do," Maya replied simply. "We have made our decision," Civax announced. "We will trust you with our existence. Begin preparations for the transformation process." Over. The next week, Earth ships descended to Valeria's surface, converting their holds into massive scanning facilities. The humans worked alongside Valari scientists, combining Earth's quantum computing technology with Valari crystal tech to create something entirely new. The first test came with an elderly Valari volunteer named Kazan. The scanning process took nearly an hour, as quantum beams mapped every aspect of Kazan's crystalline structure down to the subatomic level. When it was complete, Kazan's physical form had vanished, converted into data stored in a special crystal, Atrix. Everyone held their breath as Alejandro initiated the reconstruction process. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, crystal particles began to form in the restoration chamber, building upward and outward in complex patterns. When it was finished, Kazan stood before them, exactly as before. "Ow, do you feel?" Alejandro asked anxiously. Kazan's lights pulsed in what they now recognized as the Valari equivalent of a smile. "I feel like myself." The process was peaceful, like a dreamless sleep. With proof that the transformation worked, the evacuation began in earnest. Massive scanning facilities operated day and night, as Valari by the thousands entered the chambers. Their physical forms were converted to data, stored in specialized crystal matrices small enough for Earth ships to transport easily. Civax insisted on staying until the end, helping coordinate the enormous logistical challenge of processing billions of beings. "I will be the last to leave Valeria," the Grand Luminary declared. As the evacuation progressed, Maya received a troubling message from the fleet's sensor array. "Captain," reported First Officer Rodriguez, "we've detected multiple vessels entering the system. Conquered ships." Maya frowned. "How many?" 12 ships, much larger than anything in our fleet. They're not responding to hails." "They're coming to stop us," Maya realized. "Increase evacuation speed. We need to get as many Valari processed as possible before they arrive." On the planet's surface, massive quakes now struck hourly. Entire continents had begun to break apart, as the core destabilization reached critical levels. It was a race against both the planet's death throes and the approaching Concord fleet. In the main scanning facility, Alejandro worked frantically to increase processing speed without compromising safety. Suddenly, a massive tremor shook the building, more powerful than any before. Equipment crashed to the floor and power fluctuated throughout the facility. "The planetary core is entering final collapse," shouted Tyrell. "We have hours, not days." Alejandro looked at the lines of waiting Valari, still millions waiting their turn. They needed more time. But time was the one thing they didn't have. As another violent quake rocked the facility, Maya made a difficult decision. "Prepare all ships for emergency departure protocols, and send a message to the fleet. We're going to need a diversion." Lieutenant Commander Jamal Williams stood on the bridge of the Defiant, the only military vessel in Earth's fleet. Originally designed for colony defense, The Defiant was small compared to the Concorde ships now entering Valeria's system, but it was fast and agile. Captain Okafor's orders are clear, Jamal told his crew. We need to buy time for the evacuation. Every minute means thousands more Valeri saved. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Chen, looked up from her console. Sir, the Concorde ships are hailing us. On screen, Jamal ordered. High Chancellor Zorax's gray face appeared, 6 eyes blinking in sequence. Earth vessels, this is your final warning. The Valeri evacuation violates Concord protocols. We have new information about the Valeri that justifies our intervention. What information? Jamal asked cautiously. Our archives reveal that centuries ago, the Valeri developed biological weapons during a conflict with another species. A clear violation of Concord law. They are not the innocent victims they claim to be. Jamal's eyes narrowed. Ancient history doesn't justify letting an entire species die today. Your primitive understanding of galactic politics is irrelevant, Zorax replied coldly. You have 1 hour to cease operations and withdraw from this system. Otherwise, we will take action. As the transmission ended, Jamal contacted Captain Maya on the planet's surface. They're using an old conflict as an excuse to stop us 1 hour until they move in. Maya's voice came through the comm. We still have millions of Valerie to process. We need more time. We'll give you that time, Jamal promised. He turned to his crew. Prepare for Operation Ghost Fleet. On the Defiant, the crew rushed to implement their desperate plan. Using Earth's limited but innovative sensor technology, they created false sensor images of multiple ships where there was only one. Ready, Commander, reported Chief Engineer Patel. The system can project sensor ghosts of up to 15 vessels. They'll appear real to standard scans, but they won't fool the Conquered forever. Jamal nodded. It doesn't need to fool them forever, just long enough. Meanwhile, on Valeria's rapidly disintegrating surface, the evacuation reached a frantic pace. The scanning facilities operated at maximum capacity, converting thousands of Valeri to data every hour, yet millions still waited their turn. Grand, luminary Sivax moved among his people, inner lights pulsing with reassurance and calm. Though chaos surrounded them as buildings collapsed and crystal streets shattered, the Valeri maintained orderly lines into the scanning facilities. Inside the main facility, Dr. Alejandro Vargas noticed a worrying pattern in the sensor readings. The planet's core is becoming unstable faster than predicted. We have 3 hours at most before complete collapse. Captain Maya's face hardened. We need to speed up the process. We're already at maximum safe capacity, Alejandro warned. If we push the systems harder, we risk data corruption. Those aren't just files, they're people. Find a way, Maya ordered. We're not leaving anyone behind. Up in orbit, the Defiant launched Operation Ghost Fleet. The small Earth vessel projected sensor images of 15 additional ships, making it appear that Earth had brought military reinforcements. The Phantom fleet moved aggressively toward the Concorde ships. They're responding, Lieutenant Chen reported. Several Concorde vessels are breaking formation to intercept our ghosts. Jamal allowed himself a small smile. Begin evasive maneuvers. Keep them chasing shadows as long as possible. For nearly 2 hours, the Defiant maintained the illusion, leading the Concorde ships on a complex chase through the Valerian system. But eventually, as Jamal had known they would, the Concorde realized the deception. They're scanning us with deep penetrating sensors, Chen warned. Ghost Fleet projections failing. They know it's just us. Jamal nodded grimly. All power to engines and shields. Prepare for evasive action. The Defiant shuddered as the first Concorde energy beam struck its shields. The small Earth vessel twisted and turned, using maneuvers that would be impossible for larger ships. Jamal had studied old Earth naval battles, applying those three-dimensional tactics in ways the Concorde had never seen. We've bought almost 3 hours, Chen reported, but all conquered vessels are now on an intercept course with Valeria. They'll reach the planet in 15 minutes. Jamal opened a channel to Maya. Captain, we've done all we can. Conquered ships will reach your position in 15 minutes. What's the evacuation status? On the planet, Maya looked at the latest reports. We've processed roughly 70% of the remaining Valari. We need more time. A massive quake suddenly rocked the facility. Support beams cracked and sections of the ceiling collapsed. "Structural integrity failing," shouted an engineer. "This building won't last another 30 minutes." Outside, a huge fissure opened in the ground, swallowing an entire city block. The rumbling grew louder as the planet entered its final death throes. Maya made a quick decision. Begin loading the data crystals onto the ships. Prepare for emergency departure. Savax approached her, inner lights pulsing rapidly. "What about those still waiting? There are millions not yet processed." Maya's face showed her anguish. "The planet is breaking apart and the conquered ships are almost here. If we don't leave now, we might lose everyone." A young engineer named Raj suddenly spoke up. "Captain, what if we modified the scanning systems to process multiple Valari simultaneously? We could increase capacity tenfold." "The risk of data corruption would be enormous," Alejandro warned. "I volunteer to stay and oversee the process," Raj said firmly. "If we can maintain power for just one more hour, we might save everyone." Maya looked at him. "That's a one-way trip, Raj. The planet won't last that long." "I know," he replied simply. Before Maya could respond, several other engineers stepped forward, volunteering to stay behind. Their faces were determined, their decision already made. Sivax's lights pulsed with an intensity the humans had never seen before. The translator struggled to capture the emotion. "Your people willingly sacrifice themselves for strangers." "It's who we are," Maya said quietly. In orbit, the Defiant was taking heavy damage. 3 Concorde ships had surrounded it, their weapons slowly overwhelming the smaller vessel's shields. "Engine 3 is down," reported Engineer Patel. "Hull breaches. On decks 2 and 4. Keep them focused on us," Jamal ordered. "Every minute buys more lives." A direct hit rocked the bridge. Sparks flew from control panels, and emergency lights activated. "Shields failing," Chen announced calmly. 2 minutes, until total failure. Jamal opened a channel to all conquered ships. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jamal Williams of Earth. Your quarrel is with us, not the Valari. I propose a deal. Let the evacuation ships leave, and we'll surrender the Defiant." High Chancellor Zorax's response was immediate. "No deals. The Valari evacuation violates conquered law. Your interference will not be tolerated." Another hit struck the Defiant, more devastating than before. Fire broke out on the bridge and the life support systems began to fail. Jamal looked at his loyal crew, then made the hardest decision of his life. "All personnel, evacuate to emergency. Podzi, head for the nearest Earth vessel." "Sir?" Chen questioned. "That's an order, Lieutenant. I'm staying to give the evacuation ships the time they need." On Valeria's surface, the modified scanning systems worked at dangerous speeds. Raj and his team pushed the equipment far beyond safety limits, processing Valari in groups rather than individually. "Power fluctuations increasing," warned a technician. "System overload imminent." "Keep it together just a little longer," Raj urged, his hands moving quickly over the controls. Outside, the last transport ships were loading the precious data crystals containing the entire Valari civilization. The planet was literally breaking apart beneath them, massive chunks of crystal separating as the core destabilized completely. Grand Luminary Sivax stood with Captain Maya at the final shuttle. "It is time for you to leave," Maya told him. "Your people need their leader." Sivax's lights pulsed gently. "As the one who leads, I must be the last. This is our way." A violent tremor knocked them both off their feet. The ground began to crack around the landing pad. "No more time for debate," Maya said firmly, helping Savax into the shuttle. "We go together." As the last shuttle lifted off, they looked down at the engineers still working in the scanning facility, humans who had chosen to stay behind to save as many Valari as possible. The shuttle joined the fleet of Earth vessels now lifting away from the dying planet. On the Mercy's bridge, Maya received a final transmission from the Defiant. "Evacuation ships away," Jamal reported, his voice calm despite the chaos visible behind him. "Get them home, Captain." Before Maya could respond, the transmission cut off. The Defiant had positioned itself between the fleeing Earth ships and the Concorde vessels, its engines glowing bright as it prepared for one final, desperate maneuver. The journey back to Earth was somber and tense. Captain Maya Okafor stood on the bridge of the Mercy, watching the stars stream by as the fleet traveled at maximum speed. Behind them, the sensors had recorded the final moments of Valeria, a beautiful crystal world that had shattered into countless fragments. Its billions of years of history ended in a single catastrophic moment. But the Valari themselves had been saved. In the cargo holds of the Earth ships, thousands of data crystals held the digitized patterns of over 8 billion beings. They were no longer physical entities, but they existed, preserved, waiting to live again. Any sign of pursuit? Maya asked her sensor officer. None, Captain. The Defiant's final maneuver seems to have disabled the conquered vessels, at least temporarily. Maya nodded, her throat tight with emotion. The sacrifice of Jamal and his crew, along with Raj and the engineers who had stayed behind on Valeria, weighed heavily on her. They had given everything to save a species they had only just met. In her private quarters, Maya met with Grand Luminary Sivax, whose crystalline form had been one of the last to be physically transported rather than digitized. The Valari leader's inner lights pulsed with subdued colors. Your people gave their lives for mine, Sivax said quietly. I still struggle to understand such sacrifice. It's part of who we are, Maya replied. Throughout our history, humans have been capable of both great cruelty and great compassion. We're trying to be better, to let our better nature guide us. But where will my people go now? Sivax asked. We cannot live on Earth. Our biology is incompatible with your world. It was the question that had troubled Maya since they had left Valeria. Earth could potentially support a small Valari colony, but not billions. We'll find a solution, Maya promised. We didn't come this far to give up now. As the fleet approached Earth's solar system, they received an unexpected transmission from President Adesina. Captain Okafor, we've been monitoring your progress. When you shared the Valari data specifications ahead of your return, our scientists and engineers began working immediately. Maya frowned. Working on what, Madam President? Oh, new home? Adesina replied with a smile. I think you should see for yourself. Adjust your course to these coordinates. The coordinates led not to Earth, but to Luna, Earth's moon. As the fleet approached, Maya and Sivax stared in amazement at what they saw. A vast section of the lunar surface had been transformed. Crystal structures rose from the gray landscape, catching the sunlight and breaking it into rainbows of color. It was smaller than Valeria had been, but the resemblance was unmistakable. How is this possible? Maya whispered. When you sent the first Valari data and biological specifications, our scientists realized that the Valari could potentially thrive in Luna's low gravity and vacuum environment, Adesina explained. Their crystalline biology doesn't require atmosphere the way ours does. Every nation on Earth contributed resources, Adesina continued. Using the Valari biological data, we created a crystalline environment similar to their homeworld. It's not Valeria, but it's miraculous, Sivax interrupted, inner lights pulsing with brightness that nearly hurt human eyes. You built this for us? We couldn't save your homeworld, Adesina said, but we could offer you a new one. The Earth fleet docked at a newly constructed space station orbiting Luna. Teams of Earth scientists stood ready to begin the complex process of restoring the Valari from their data state to physical form. Dr. Alejandro Vargas led the reconstruction team. We've set up specialized chambers that will convert the stored data back into physical Valari, he explained to Sivax. The process will take time, perhaps a year to restore everyone, but we've tested it thoroughly. Your people will live again. Sivax was the first to witness a group of 100 Valari being reconstituted. The chamber glowed with energy, as complex crystal patterns formed in mid-air, gradually solidifying into Valari bodies. When the process completed, the chamber contained 100 living, conscious Valari, their inner lights pulsing with joy and amazement. News of the Valari rescue spread throughout Earth and its colonies. Humanity celebrated their first major contact with an alien civilization. not as conquerors or victims, but as rescuers. 6 months later, with restoration efforts well underway, an unexpected communication arrived from the Galactic Concord. High Chancellor Zorax requested a meeting with Earth representatives. The meeting took place on the lunar base now named New Valeria. President Adesina and Captain Maya represented Earth, while Sivax and several Valari elders represented their people. Zorax arrived with a small delegation of various alien species. The gray-skinned, six-eyed chancellor seemed uncomfortable as he addressed the gathering. The Concord Council has reviewed the events surrounding the Valari evacuation, Zorax stated formally. While your methods were unorthodox and violated several protocols, we acknowledge that your actions were not without merit. Maya exchanged glances with President Adesina. This seemed as close to an apology as the proud Concord would offer. Furthermore, Zorax continued, several member species have expressed interest in establishing relations with Earth. Your technological innovations, particularly the data conversion process that saved the Valari, have attracted considerable attention. Sivax stepped forward, towering over the Concord representatives. Earth will have more than Concord attention. They have the eternal friendship and alliance of the Valari people. 1 year after the destruction of Valeria, a memorial ceremony was held at the center of New Valeria. By then, over 6 billion Valari had been restored to physical form, with the remainder expected to be completed within months. The memorial honored all those who had given their lives during the rescue, the crew of the Defiant, Raj and his team of engineers, and the Valari who had been lost before they could be saved. At the ceremony's center stood a monument made of earth stone and Valari crystal. It depicted a human hand reaching out to help a Valari rise from broken crystal fragments. When touched by light, the crystal elements created a holographic display showing the faces of those who had sacrificed themselves. Captain Maya, now Admiral Okafor, stood beside Grand Luminary Sivax as the monument was unveiled. Thousands of humans and Valari gathered to witness the moment. Sivax addressed the crowd, his inner lights projecting far enough for all to see. When we called into the darkness, only Earth answered, he said, his words translated for all to hear. They were not the most powerful species, not the most advanced, but they were the most human. And we have learned that being human is the greatest strength of all. Our histories are now forever linked, Sivax continued. The story of how Earth saved the Valari will be told for generations to come. It will stand as proof that compassion can exist between different worlds, different forms of life. As night fell over the lunar landscape, the monument glowed with an inner light visible from orbit, a beacon announcing humanity's arrival on the galactic stage not as conquerors or merchants, but as those who help simply because help was needed. On D. Earth children looked up at the moon, now sparkling with crystal cities, and dreamed of a universe where different beings could reach across the stars to help one another, where answering a cry for help was the most natural thing in the world. And in the great council chambers of the Galactic Concord, quiet conversations began about the unusual species from a small blue planet, a young civilization that had taught an ancient galactic community the true meaning of advancement. The end.